Hey guys, how's it going? Today we are going to be out here in the cut flower garden working on a few things. We've got some perennials to dig and relocate, both ones I planted and ones that have reseeded themselves around. And then we've got some harvesting to do, and I just want to give you some updates on a few plants and talk through some of the big changes that are about ready to happen out here that I'm so looking forward to. And here's Russell. Hey buddy. Oh my goodness. Good morning. There are just some beautiful things going on out here. I mean, the statice and celosia are stunning. And I can see the honeybees all over flying around the celosia in particular. The dahlias have kind of started to put on some growth and some flowers. I'd kind of written those off, so I'm thankful for that. The gomphrena looks really nice. The fountain is, of course, gorgeous. We're enjoying it so much. You'll notice right here, the grass looking a little yellow. The electricians came in and ran the cords for the pump and the light. They actually cut the cords here, spliced them together with another cord. I don't know how they do it all, but anyway, the junction's in this box. And then they ran the cord all the way over to the electrical access so that we didn't have to have an above ground plug-in right here, which is so great because once all this grass repairs, it'll sort of grow over this box, you know, as grass does, and you won't even notice it. They did such a great job. I'm so glad they were able to do it like that. Our annual quadrant out here is looking really great. I mean, the stuff that we have seeded, the cosmos, the zinnias. I know I just showed you all of this in a tour. Look at this. It's just absolutely glorious. Sunflowers look great. There are a lot of fresh ones, but I like to leave these too. The birds will feast on the sunflower seeds. Then there's a lot of patchiness where we had things planted, we harvested, and then we didn't replant. And that's because we made the decision to put in the boxwoods this fall. And we made that decision about mid-season this year for sure, and got the boxwoods on order. Those are supposed to be here the very first week of October. So I didn't really want to plant something that was gonna go very late into the season because it would end up being right in the way of what we're gonna be doing. But let me tell you what, this whole space, many of you know who have been watching our videos, in the wintertime, all of this stuff goes away. All of the plants, you can't see anything, it's just dirt out here, and we don't like freshly mulch and make it look pristine for the winter time. That's not worth it. So it's just this empty, stark looking space, kind of messy looking space for, you know, a good 5 months out of the year, and it needs some structure. So I'm really excited to do box hedging around all the quadrants. There will be 4 openings. So right in the center, there will be a walkway going this way with an opening on the other side. There'll also be an opening going from here to this side. So there'll be kind of an X, you know, through each one of the individual quadrants. And then we picked up those 12 Redmond linden trees. We're gonna be planting those in this area, which I think is gonna bring so much height and grandeur to this area instead of it all being so flat. You know, we've got like the corn and sunflowers and such, and we've got the North Pole arborvitaes, which will eventually, they'll grow maybe double what they are right now. So the North Poles will actually be a screen for the homes that are right there, but I think having even more height and more canopy will be so, so nice. And you know, the trees will be small for many, many years. So we'll still have a very full sun open area for a while, to where we'll still be planting full sun loving, probably cut flowers within the quadrants. It's just gonna be structured a little bit differently, and I think it's gonna speak to my style a little bit more. And I've enjoyed this row crop sort of thing for the last few years, but I always like to change it up and do something different after a few years too. Anyway, we've got the Sweet Annie Artemisia right here, which I've harvested a little bit. I am unfamiliar with this plant, really. This is the first year I've ever grown it, and it does look like a giant kochia weed, which is a weed we deal with a lot around here, but it has a wonderful smell. It's just kind of like that herbal, kind of citrusy smell, and I think we're supposed to be harvesting before like there's a bunch of pollen. I mean, I don't think it matters all that much, but it's just more messy. So I did harvest this little section right here, and I have them in the barn drying, but I want to come along and get a little bit more of this harvested. Some of it hasn't bloomed out yet. So this is Artemisia annua, I think is what it is. They also call it wormwood. Again, this is the first year I'm growing it, and I don't know a tremendous amount about it, but I did read that they actually use this for treatment, like for malaria and Lyme disease and some other things. And don't quote me on any of that medical stuff. This is just a little bit of information I was reading, but I grew it, of course, largely as an ornamental. It's an amazing filler in an arrangement. I have enjoyed it so much tucked into arrangements and it lasts forever because it just kind of dries looking the same. And then a lot of people use it for crafting, making wreaths, and it's fairly expensive to buy online. So the fact that we have this big old mass of it here is pretty fun. So I thought we would just get some of it cut, get it drying, and that way if a wild hair hits us this winter, we'll have some dried Artemisia to utilize in some projects. Quick little look over the rose garden. What I plan to do with this area, I'm going to go through with some tape and I'm going to mark all the ones that I want to save for our garden. That has been probably the most fun part for me because I planted a bunch of roses that I had no experience with. And some of them I love and I want to keep for our flower beds, and some of them have a super weird growth habit, or they're just too wild, or they're too hard to deadhead because there's too many little roses all over the place, so that they kind of have a messier look. So I was really able to hone in on some varieties that I love. So I'm going to tag the ones that I want to keep and we'll get those dug for our garden. And then I'm going to let friends and family go through and take whatever they want. They can dig and take roses to their gardens and enjoy them in their spaces, and that way that will free this area up for the new boxwood situation. Oh, I just realized one of my frames tipped over. Shoot. Lots of good ones in here. Look at this. Perfect. And then there's the pineapple tomato, which these are producing some big ol' beastie tomatoes. Woo! Look at that. My biggest one so far is 2.7 pounds. I need clippers. My goodness. Ugh. There we go. They are gorgeous tomatoes. I really do need to spend some time harvesting these. But that was not on my list for today. I did have a friend come through earlier on and she harvested everything that was here to take home and preserve because her tomato plants didn't do so great. Maybe I'll text her and see if she wants more. And then this quadrant right here is a complete menagerie. We grew onions in these 2 rows. Again, I didn't replant anything because I didn't want anything to be right in the way of where the boxwoods are gonna go. There's a ton of perennials, echinacea, there's Orangium, there's delphiniums, rudbeckia, bunch of stuff. There's also corn. There's also more sweet Annie Artemisia there. There's sweet peas and sunflowers and beans and potatoes. A space that I was gonna dedicate, or was gonna try to dedicate mostly to perennials, turned into sort of a space that whenever I would come out here with a tray of seedlings, I would just try to find a spot that was open, and that's where it went, which ended up being this space here. But if you look around, especially in this first area, you can see a bunch of Orangium, which that's a botanical name for the sea holly, which I did start from seed and planted right here. And it's such an amazing plant. Oh, good. We have cut it back, but you can see one bloom stalk right here. They get the most glorious blue blooms. This one's not quite as vibrant as the others were earlier, but now that they've been cut back and sort of cleaned up, they're going to be easier to dig. And I'd like to go through and dig all of the little seedlings that have come up everywhere because they are strong, beautiful looking plants. Look at that. All along here. There's an echinacea right there. Oh, they're just gorgeous. So I don't know exactly how far we're going to get today, but this is what we're going to start with. We're going to dig all the Orangium out, hopefully fill up the back of the gator, and then we are going to go transplant it out into the garden because it's such a wonderful perennial. I would say that the Orangium is like an early season Caryopteris in terms of pollinator attractiveness. You could come out here earlier in the season when it's in bloom and every single pollinator is on that plant. It's just amazing. It's kind of like how the Caryopteris are out in the garden right now. The bees are just swarming those plants. And all the seedlings came up. Those are all free plants. So I've got my shovel. I've got this trug that I might put smaller seedlings in, and then my starter fertilizer. But it should be pretty easy. I'm not sure what the root system's going to look like here. Let's just dig and see what we've got going. Oh, see, there's an echinacea in with this one. So we'll kind of separate that. There's our echinacea. Oh yeah, and there's our beautiful Orangium right there. Okay, so this is going to be, I hope, pretty easy. We'll get all these dug and then we'll take them out and get them all planted. Okay, we've got a gator full. We need to go take care of these before we dig anything else, but it is looking better. We got all the seedlings from the first row, even got the drip tape taken up because it's not watering anything anymore. Got it all weeded, got the seedlings from this section. From in front of the bench, there was some echinacea up there. I dug the ones from right here, and then there was another, let's see what, I guess it wasn't an open section. There was a bunch like worked up in the delphiniums and rudbeckia right there. We've got a whole bunch more Orangium to dig, but we need to take care of this first batch. They're kind of starting to wilt already. Today and tomorrow are the last days we have in the low 90s. Then it looks like the rest of our 10-day is in the 70s, and there's even a day in the 60s, which will make it a lot easier on the rest of these plants as we move into that sort of weather pattern when we transplant those. These will be fine though. We'll just get them planted and watered in and maybe cut back, we'll see. I think I would like to pop some of them back in here. We've got some microchip pink buddleia in with all of our beautiful annuals. My goodness. This Hoopla Vivid Orchid is just a performer. And the pink cashmere superbena, it has performed really well all season, but it's right in the middle of a lull. So we may get one more flush before everything's done for the season. We've got the Ringo Double Pink Roses in here. We've also got some iris. I think these are a little Siberian iris, so I think I'm going to pop some in here and have a nice big drift of the sea holly, and then that would be really nice. It's looking so pretty out here. Oh, so usually when I do this and I've got a whole gator full of root balls, I just go out and dig a bunch of holes where I think each root ball should go, and then I just start plugging them in. It's pretty easy. Here's our first batch. We have 14 holes that I dug in here, more than 14 plants though. The plants that were either on the very small side or maybe the ones that I didn't get quite as much of a root system out of, I would put 2 or 3 of those plants in an individual hole, hoping that at least one of them would take. So while I dug 14 holes and have 14 sites planted, there's probably 3 or 4 holes that have 2 or 3 plants in them. But I think this is going to be great because if you look down the way, we've got purple with our Russian sage, but that doesn't come out until mid to late summer. The Orangium will be so much earlier, and then even earlier than that, we've got the iris, which have a purple bloom. So we'll kind of have staggered purple in this area, which I think I'm gonna love. There's a lot of pink, even without the annuals. There's still a lot of pink in this area with the roses and the buddleia. The spirea are pink. Spirea are being gobbled up, but you can see them popping through there. And then even our sedum down in here are pink. And then Fall in Love Sweetly anemones, further on down, pink. The next batch of purple are the buddleia, Miss Violet. But this whole spot was a giant ant hill. There were just ants pouring into every hole that I dug. So I just tried to do my business in there and get out of there. So the soil, usually I try to be very careful, especially with nice fresh mulched areas. And I try to put the mulch all up next to the plant. I did not even worry about it. So when this area dries out, I watered it, the whole spot, pretty thoroughly. It'll look probably pretty crummy. The ants will most likely vacate this evening and go somewhere else. That's typically what happens. Okay, I already drove the gator over to the next area where I want to plant because I think I've got roughly 7 left out of the first batch that we dug. Plus I did, maybe I already showed you this, I did dig this is a medium double mix campanula. Beautiful double purple bells, and there was just 1 clump of those, so I got those, and then we'll still need to do our echinacea. But I thought the Orangium would look beautiful in here. Right now we have chamomile, which we just cut back, and it'll kind of seed itself in this area, and it's this nice fluffy green with white flowers. There's some pincushion flowers in here, so I thought just kind of tucking in some Orangium and maybe even our echinacea in this space would be gorgeous. Hopefully we don't run into ants in this spot. Let's get it done. Oh, geez. First hole I dug, I ran into the drip line and cut it right there. I gotta go get a coupler and make a repair quick. For crying out loud. Oh my gosh. I just hit another drip line. So what are the odds of running into a drip line and breaking it, fixing it, and then digging the hole to the side of the drip line? What are the odds of hitting another one right next to it? Pretty high in this garden. And this time it's a supply line. Excellent. So cut this one, fixed it. Couldn't see this one. I just pulled this up out of the ground a little bit more than it was. So I moved my hole over to the side and thought, well, I'll be clear of the drip line if I dig my hole here. Not today. Now I gotta go get more drip supplies. You've gotta be kidding me. I feel like this is a repeat of a project we did earlier this season. Maybe I should just go like stock up on drip supplies if that's how it's gonna go. Gloves. Okay, for our 3/4 inch supply line, it does require a couple of extra pieces for a repair as opposed to a 1/2 inch. Usually there's a whole lot more pressure in these lines as opposed to these, so you can see I did not use any clamps to repair the 1/2 inch, but on the 3/4 inch have to use the clamps. So you can see I came in and cut out the damaged portion of the 3/4 inch line and then slid a clamp onto each side and then just used a straight coupler, popped it in and then clamped these down. So we should be good to go, and I'm going to make my next hole right here. If I run into drip line, I am going to be amazed. That's the word I'm going to use for it. Amazed. Go. And there is our second drift. We ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Eryngium. And then I started the Echinacea sort of in front of that because they're a tiny bit shorter. So carried on with those. And I think what I want to do with the rest of the Eryngium and Echinacea that are in the cut flower garden is really pack this area out. So bring the Echinacea maybe all the way forward here and then kind of back behind the phlox, and then have the Eryngium kind of going back behind, filling in this section right here. I did put the one campanula that we ended up with in an empty spot that I happen to have right there. So you're gonna have to kind of use your imagination to have that ferny green texture right here with the little white blooms, blue Eryngium, there's blue pincushion flowers, or purple rather. There's some pink Echinacea there, there'll be pink Echinacea here. It's gonna be so pretty. And now that we know where the rest of the Eryngium and Echinacea from the cut flower are gonna go, or largely where they're gonna go, I think I'm gonna wait on digging those since it is so warm today. We'll have time later on and they're not in the way. Not like all the plants that were right here on the edge. All the edges are gonna have to be cleared, like there's a ranch panel on that side with sunflowers. Thankfully they're spent. So we can clean that whole back ranch panel away so that we have room for boxwoods around the exterior. Everything in the middle is not gonna be in the way until next year when we start developing the interior. So that'll give us time to come back in when it's cooler and dig all the rest of this stuff. So what we have in here to actually move out will be, of course, the Echinacea and Eryngium, the delphiniums. There's just a few right in here. There are some foxglove in here, but it was their second year in here, so I think I'm just gonna let them go. I saved some of the seed that was on the bloom stalks, but we do have the yarrow as well. So this is Summer Pastels blend and Firefly Red Pop. I think we will probably let our strawberries go. We would be cruising into our 4th season with those, and productivity usually starts to go down after the 2nd and 3rd year of production. So it's kind of perfect timing. I want to build a tall strawberry bed somewhere so we can let those go. I mean, they can stay in here until we need them out of the way next season, which I don't know at what point we're going to actually start working on the interior. But yeah, we can replant somewhere where we can access them at waist high, which is going to be so nice. And then the rest of the stuff in here is annual. You know, we've got our lima beans over there, which are actually forming up. I can run over and show you. We've got corn. These are annual Rudbeckias here. So those will go away. Look at this. Aren't these awesome? Look at these big old pods forming up. That is so exciting, especially because I had such a hard time getting my beans going in this space. Oh, there's a bunch of Orangium in here. 1, 2, 3, big bunch of it. 4, 5, and potatoes. Oh my goodness. I'm excited though. I'm so excited about the changes in here. I think they're going to be good, and I think that going forward we're going to enjoy this space so much more. Okay, so at this point we've got our transplanting done for the day. I am going to go clean out the back of the gator so that we can cut back some of the Artemisia and we'll have a clean bed to put it in. This won't do. I don't want any of that stuff getting mixed up with our clean Artemisia. Back out here with the Sweet Annie Artemisia, you can see we've got our gator pretty much cleaned out. Now I think I'm going to attack this in 3 different ways. So I've got the buckets back here that I put a little bit of water in. I want to experiment by just treating some of these like a bouquet, putting them in a little bit of water, letting them drink some of that before they start to dry, kind of like I would with hydrangea blooms, just to see if they preserve any better than they would if they were hanging or if they were laying flat, which is what I did with the first batch that we cut. They actually look pretty good, drying just flat on the ground. So I just wanted to try all 3 methods just to see which way they look better. And these can be pretty beastie on the bottom. Like for our bouquets, I'm going to come in and cut individual branches like this right here. Boy, that's beautiful. Isn't that beautiful? Just going to pop it right in there. I'm not going to even worry about cleaning off any of the bottom branches. But I did bring my loppers out too, because the ones that I end up cutting just to lay flat or to hang, I want to cut all the way down toward the bottom. And if I just use these as sort of an example of what I already cut, look at how big their stalks get. I mean, just enormous. And it was all my Falcos could do the other day to get through this right here. That was pretty thick because they're like really hard. Really tough wood, which I did not expect of this plant. I guess I didn't really know what to expect of this plant the first time growing it, but it's definitely something I would do again, knowing how well it holds in a vase, how long it keeps. I feel like I have things crawling all over me right now after being in that anthill that I was in. Oh my goodness. Ugh. Anyway, let's get some of these cut and then we'll take them back to the barn and get them laid out, hung, etc. Oh my goodness. Look at this plant. One plant right here. This big thing. Like, that is just amazing to me. That's huge. I went ahead and grabbed the great big trophy vase and I popped some in there and they're so beautiful. I'm going to take these in the house. I've got the 2 buckets up front with the water, and then these are just laying here, and that's only representative about 3 right there. And then I've got the one up here. It's just amazing to me that they grow this big. in one season. And we still have quite a bit left, but I am kind of running out of room and I want to get through the pile that we currently have so we can come back out here and harvest the rest later. I did clean up the plants that were right here. You can see how far apart I spaced them. About a foot right there. And they did great with that spacing, honestly. I didn't really feel like it took away from their productivity, that's for sure. And then the front side here, and these plants, I just kind of topped them and got the really nice tops off of them, but there's still a lot of nice branches in there. And we still do have that little patch over there by the corn. I started one flat of these from seed this year. So maybe next time I start like half a flat. I think I want to try making a wreath though really quick. I think that'd be another fun way to see how it dries in wreath form. I know a lot of people make wreaths with this, and it's going to be much easier to make a wreath when the branches are still pliable and not dry. So we're going to take it to the flower shed. Maybe I'll just pull the bistro table out so the lighting is nice, and we'll whip out a wreath real quick. Yeah, I think if we made one right here, it'd be nice. See if I've got everything that we need here. I know I've got wreath forms. Probably want to make a larger one, so probably a 14-incher right here. Then we need paddle wire right there. So I'm going to work on cutting a bunch of branches just to create nice little bundles. I'm thinking bundles about this size, so I'll show you how we get a wreath started. First of all, we take our paddle wire, which this is 24 gauge, and we're going to wrap it around our wreath form. I just kind of go in and out. Okay, so you can see it's attached. We do not cut our paddle wire until the very end of our wreath making process. I'm going to lay that flat. We take our bundle and we lay it right on top of where we just attached our wire. And then we're going to go around the bundle and the wreath form 2 or 3 times, pulling fairly snug every time we go around, because these right now, they're fresh, but as they dry, you know, they desiccate and kind of shrivel up a little bit, and we don't want these to be loose, you know, or the wire to be loose when they do dry out a little bit. So you want to make sure it's tight, but not so tight that you break your wire, which I have done more than once. So basically we just continue the same exact process, putting the second bundle like here, kind of facing it in a little bit, face out, face in, face out, face in, every time, just grabbing our paddle, going around 2 or 3 times, and it kind of just moves around with you naturally. I've done lots of wreath tutorials throughout the years, so I'm just going to set up here and get this one done, and I will stop right before I am ready to finish it and show you how I cut the wire and attach it to the back. Look at how beautiful it's turned out. Just the way that these lay and the way that the branches are structured, it gives the wreath kind of a natural movement here, and they're so fluffy. You know, you can kind of fill in holes, or you know, you probably could even tuck in little individuals because there's enough for them to kind of hang on to. But you can see my paddle wire is still attached. Like in fact, you can just pick the whole thing up with the paddle wire, and I'm going to lay it on its top. You don't want to do that with all wreaths, but since these branches are so fresh, it won't hurt this one at all. And I'm just going to cut like maybe a 12-inch piece of wire here. Okay, paddle wire. First time I've cut it the whole time. And you can see the excess right here. So basically what I do is I just find a place to tie it off. You just weave it in and out of the wreath form. Well, you know, if I had 2 hands here, it might be a little easier. There we go. And if you want to at this point, you could make yourself a little loop right here out of your wire so that you have something to hang it off of. But I like to use a wreath, like one of the things that comes around the bottom and hooks to your door. So usually you don't need one of those. Okay, that looks good. Flip it back over, fluff it, voila. So usually at this point, I like to pick my wreaths up. There happens to be a nail on this window from Christmas time. This is not where it's gonna stay, but usually I like to hang my wreaths to see if there are any holes, and that is so pretty. Look at that. I don't really see any holes, and the beautiful part about this specific plant is that you can kind of fluff it and kind of mold it the way that you want it to look, to fill in any gaps. Wow, this is a brand new medium for me, having never grown it or used it in an application like this. And how fun is it to find something that's so easy to work with, and it smells good the whole time. Oh, and I don't really even see holes or misshapen areas. I don't even know how many wreaths I have made in my life, but this is one of the easier ones I've ever made. The hardest one is wheat. Wheat is so dry and brittle and stiff, it's hard to get them to look exactly uniform, and usually I find myself needing to hot glue some pieces in to fill in gaps, but not with this. Also, it took less than one plant to make this. So I had that one on the ground, and I just cut off ends. If I was really diligent and wanted to take the time to go through and harvest every single branch, you might get, anywhere from a half to another full wreath out of this one plant. And that's kind of fun to know, that if you plant 10 Artemisia plants, you could get 10 plus wreaths from those 10 plants, if they grew as well as they did this year. And my crops, it kind of varies from year to year how they do. Like the dahlias, for example, usually I have the most success with dahlias. They're huge, enormous, so productive, and this year they're looking better, but they're not great. But I am just so pleased with this. I love it. Now it'll be interesting to see how it dries in this form. I don't know if I need to lay it flat, like if it will wilt. I don't know. I'll show you the stuff in the barn that's just been laying on its side. It looks like it's drying true to shape, except for the very bottom is a little bit compressed from the weight of the plant, but you forfeit a little bit on the bottom to not have to hang it. It's much less of a pain. Also, while we were making the wreath, my friend was able to come and harvest all of the tomatoes. I sent her a text right after we found all the ones this morning, and she came with her kids and cleaned out the tomato plants, which is great, and took one of the big Artemisia plants so that she could do some stuff at home with it. That's so much fun. Okay, so we're gonna take this up to the house, as well as our trophy vase arrangement, and all the rest of our stuff. Where's this gonna ride? Well, I think it can just ride on top of that. There we go. So here in the barn, you can see the stuff that I harvested the other day. It's just been sitting here along with some onions that are still drying down a little bit. And it definitely isn't quite as bright as the stuff that we harvested today, but like this is dry, and look at how beautifully it dried. Like these individual branches did not wilt down. It kept its form really nicely. And on the back side right here, you can see it's just a tiny bit more flat, but not too much. And if I'm only sacrificing just a couple of branches to being more flat and the rest of the plant's nice and full, I think I would prefer that instead of trying to figure out, like, maybe I can pop a plant up over one of these just to see how it does. But most of it, I think I'm just gonna dry it like this. So let's get it unloaded. There we go. Piled some on top of the pile that was already there. So yeah, you might be able to tell a little bit of a difference between this and this is a little bit more dry, a little more gray in its color. And then we've got our tubs that have a little bit of water in them. And then I was able to use a broom to kind of tuck that one up a little bit. We'll see how that one dries. Okay, we're gonna go find a wreath hanger quick. Okay, so we can go hang the wreath and put this arrangement in the landing. shade porch door. I love that it looks like harvest time, but not overtly fall. I like the little chartreuse kind of green color that we've got going. A little bit of a monochromatic palette over here. It's very peaceful. You can also see a Halloween pillow right there. I've been going through all my fall tubs. This is the year of organizing for me. So I have been going through my tubs, purging stuff that I don't use anymore, and really organizing how I've got them put together. It's taking some time, but it feels good. And then here is the trophy vase arrangement. It looks really good in here. It's about the most informal flower you could put in a vase like this, in a setting like this, but I sort of love it. I love the fact that it will dry like this. You know, if we had other flowers in here that were more bright and whatever, more colorful, we'd have to swap it out in a week's time. So this one we can enjoy for a while. It can just kind of fill up this space and then we can swap it out a little bit later. So fun. And you guys, that is going to do it for our projects today. I love the fact that we got all of those Orangium and Echinacea moved. It just started to clean that area up a little bit, and just having a plan going forward, you know, knowing where all the rest of those are going to go. Even though we didn't do it today, I know what needs to happen next, and that's always kind of half the battle. And then just playing with these flowers was so much fun. It's been a while since I've just stopped what I was doing and made a wreath, you know, and I don't have any wreaths on any of my doors except for this one now, so we might have to change that. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. It's just gonna get more and more pleasant as the week goes on. Cooler temperatures, less sweaty. It's gonna be nice. See you guys in the next one. Bye.